In a small forgotten village called Esho, nestled deep in the heart of Africa, the whispers of a revolution were beginning to echo. This wasn't the typical revolution fueled by war drums or political rallies. No, this was a revolution of the mind, a subtle but powerful shift in the collective consciousness, a feminist awakening that was set to change the philosophical world forever. The women of Esho had always been the backbone of the community, their hands tending to the fields, their voices soothing the children, and their wisdom guiding the village through the cycles of the seasons. Yet, despite their undeniable importance, they were often relegated to the shadows, their potential stifled by traditions that had long outlived their usefulness. But then came Nia, a young woman with fire in her eyes and a mind that burned with ideas. Nia was different. She questioned everything, the roles assigned to women, the stories told by elders, and the invisible chains that kept our sisters in submission. She began to speak out, her words spreading like wildfire through the village, igniting a spark in the hearts of the women who had long been silenced. Nia's philosophy was simple yet profound. Equality isn't just about leveling the playing field, it's about recognizing the unique strengths of women and how this strength could lead society into a new era of enlightenment. She believed that the world needed a new paradigm, one where feminine wisdom was not just acknowledged but celebrated, where intuition, empathy, and collaboration were seen as strengths, not weaknesses. Her ideas were radical. She spoke of balance, of a world where men and women walked side by side, each contributing their strengths to the betterment of society. She envisioned a future where decision-making was collaborative, where leadership was about service rather than dominance, and where the measure of success was not in how much one could take, but in how much one could give. The men of the village were initially resistant. They had been raised in a world where power was synonymous with masculinity, where a man's worth was measured by his ability to control and dominate. But as Nia's word spread, they began to see the cracks in the old ways. They saw the suffering of their wives, daughters, and sisters, the missed opportunities, the unrealized potential. Slowly, they began to listen. Nia didn't call for the destruction of tradition. She called for its evolution. She spoke of the need to integrate the best of the old ways with the wisdom of the present, to create something new and powerful. Her ideas were not about tearing down but about building a world where every person, regardless of gender, could thrive. Her message resonated far beyond the borders of Asia. It reached neighboring villages, spread across the continent, and eventually made its way to the world stage. Nia's philosophy became known as the Esho Doctrine, a new feminist revolution that wasn't about opposition, but about integration. It wasn't about fighting against men, but about fighting for a world where everyone had a place, a voice, and a purpose. The Esho Doctrine challenged the very foundations of traditional philosophy. It proposed that true wisdom comes not from competition, but from collaboration, not from individualism, but from community. It suggested that the future of humanity lay in embracing the strengths of both genders, in creating a society where the masculine and feminine energies were in harmony. Nia became a symbol of this new revolution, her name synonymous with change, progress, and hope. She proved that the power of ideas could be greater than any weapon, that a single voice could spark a movement that will change the course of history. And so, from the village of Esho, a new feminist revolution was born. It was a revolution that didn't seek to dominate but to elevate, a revolution that didn't just challenge the status quo, but offered a new way of thinking, a new way of being. It was the dawn of a new era, one where the world finally began to understand that the strength of a society lies in its ability to embrace and uplift every voice, every talent, every soul. Nia continued, if our men lose their positions of power, what happens if they are fired or economically disenfranchised? Do we abandon them in their time of need? No, we must stand by them, just as we expect them to stand by us. Feminism is not just about lifting ourselves up, it is about lifting each other up, regardless of gender. Nia's words resonated deeply within the community. The Esho doctrine began to evolve, incorporating these new ideas into its core philosophy. It became clear that this movement wasn't just about women fighting for their place in the world. It was about creating a society where both men and women could thrive together, where power was shared and balanced, and where support flowed in both directions. In the months that followed, the village of Esho became a model for the rest of the continent. Women and men worked side by side, not in competition, but in collaboration. When one faltered, the other stepped in to help. When men lost their jobs or faced hardships, the women supported them, not out of obligation, but out of a deep understanding that their strength lay in their unity. Nia's vision was revolutionary because it didn't just challenge the status quo, it expanded the very definition of feminism. It wasn't about proving who was better, it was about proving that together they were unstoppable. The Esho doctrine showed that true equality was not about taking power from one group to give it to another. It was about creating a new kind of power, one that uplifted everyone. And so, the story of Esho became a beacon of hope, not just for women, but for men as well. It was a reminder that in the struggle for equality, we must not lose sight of our shared humanity. The revolution Nia started was not just a feminist one, it was a human one, rooted in the belief that we are stronger together, that our differences are our strengths, and that true power lies not in domination, but in cooperation. Nia's ideas had already sparked a quiet revolution in Esho, but she knew there was still more to be said. The philosophy that had emerged was profound, but as Nia delved deeper into the complexities of gender dynamics, she began to see cracks in the traditional beliefs that still held sway. Even among the most progressive minds in the village, there was a notion that despite all the talk of equality and balance, a woman's role was still fundamentally different from a man's, and that difference often translated into a dangerous imbalance when life became difficult. One evening, as the village gathered for a communal meal, Nia stood up to speak, her voice clear and steady. The people had grown accustomed to her insights, but tonight, there was a weight in her words that made them lean in, eager to hear what she had to say. "My sisters," Nia began, her voice scanning the faces of the women before her, "we have made great strides in understanding our place in this world. We have learned that we must not only fight for our right to lead, but also stand by our men as they struggle. But there is something else we must confront, a belief that is so ingrained in us that it can destroy the very homes we seek to build." She paused, allowing the tension in the air to build. Too often, when a man falls on hard time, when he loses his job, his status, or his strength, we women are told that it is our right, even our duty to leave him. We are told that a man who cannot provide is no longer worthy of our love or support. But I ask you, is this truly the way forward? Is this the change we seek? The crowd murmured, some women nodding in agreement, others frowning as they considered Nia's words. For better and for worse, Nia continued, that is what we pledge in our unions. Yet, when worse comes, when the winds of adversity blow, we are quick to abandon ship. We justify it by saying that we deserve better, that we should not have to bear the burden of a man's failures. But in doing so, are we not perpetuating the very systems of oppression we seek to dismantle? Are we not destroying the beautiful homes we have built, brick by brick, with our own hands? Nia's words hung in the air, heavy with implication. She knew she was challenging not just the men, but the women too. She was asking them to look in the mirror and question the very beliefs that had been instilled in them for generations. The new world we envision, Nia said, cannot be built on the foundations of the old. It is not enough to demand equality when times are good. We must also be willing to uphold that equality when times are bad. A new world woman does not flee at the first sign of trouble. She stands firm, shoulder to shoulder with her man, bringing not just her strength, but also resources to bear. We are no longer in a time where a man provides and a woman receives. We are in a time where both must contribute, where both must bring half to the table. The idea was radical. It questioned the deeply held belief that a man's worth was tied to his ability to provide materially, and that a woman's worth was tied to her ability to support him emotionally. Nia was proposing something different, an idea that both men and women must learn to provide, in all senses of the word, for each other and for their families. And why? Nia asked. Do we run from a man in his darkest hour, when that is when he needs us the most? Is that not the true test of love and partnership? If we truly want change, we must be willing to change ourselves. We must shed the old ways of thinking that tells us a woman's fate is tied to a man's success. We are past that. That thinking must fade forever. Nia's words sparked a wave of discussion across the village. Some women found themselves questioning their own actions, wondering if they had been too quick to judge, too quick to leave when things got tough. Others felt empowered by the idea that they could take an active role in providing for their families, not just as supporters but as equals. The men, too, were forced to confront their own insecurities. They had been raised to believe that their worth was in their ability to provide, but Nia's vision offered them a new way of seeing themselves, no longer as solitary providers, but as partners in a shared journey. As the night wore on, the conversation deepened. Couples sat together, talking late into the night about what it meant to truly support one another, about how they could both bring their strengths to the table. The idea of half and half began to take root, not as a division, but as a unification of resources, efforts, and dreams. In the days that followed, Nia's philosophy began to reshape the village's approach to relationships and family life. Women began to take more active roles in the economic and decision-making aspects of their households, and men learned to accept help without feeling diminished. The village of Esho became a model for a new kind of partnership, one where both men and women shared the burdens and joys of life equally. Nia's words had sparked yet another revolution, one that challenged the very foundations of traditional gender roles. It wasn't just about fighting for power or supporting men when they faltered. It was about creating a new understanding of what it meant to be a partner, a provider, and a protector. And so, the story of Esho continued to grow, spreading its roots deep into the hearts of those who heard it. The village became a beacon of hope for a new world, a world where the fate of a woman was not left in the hands of a man, but in her own hands, alongside the hands of her partner, working together to build a life that was truly equal, truly balanced, and truly just. Alright guys, subscribe to Afro Narrative. I am your host, Mike Weistalga.